Professor of Political Theory at King's College, Cambridge, John Donne has spent the last 25 years tracing the complex trajectory of democracy as an idea and as a practice. Professor Donne is currently visiting Armenia.
Professor Donne is coming from the Cambridge University. He's one of the world-renowned professors in political theory. He has specialized in political thought and political theory, democracy theory, as well as John Locke's political philosophy. He came here as part of the British Embassy's British Chevening Alumni's guest speaker program. And since I'm coming also from the same university that Professor Donne has been teaching over the last 4 decades, I thought that within that project it would be very good if we could invite him to have a lecture as well as a general visit to Armenia. So I'll be having TV interview, newspaper interview, and then meeting with the British alumni as well as internet lecture.
During a lecture at the American University of Armenia titled "Why Democracies Fail and How They Can Succeed," John Donne presented definite political arguments about how to understand democracy, what it is not, what you can hope for and fear from.
To grasp why democracies fail and assess how best they can hope to succeed, you first have to focus your mind on just what democracy is. You can think of democracy as just a word. You can think of it as an array of fairly vague ideas which the word evokes. And crucially for our purposes, you can also think of it as a variety of forms of government which claim to embody and realize the most important and durably motivating of those ideas. You can think of it, that's to say, as a form of government which is as good in itself as forms of government can be, and which is reliably equipped by being so to produce the benign consequences which only good forms of government can produce for those who are subject to their sway. If you do think of it that way, you must recognize from the start that it must be either imbecile or shamelessly dishonest to equate any actual government simply because of its form with the reliable capacity at any point in time to produce consequences which are on balance good for most of those it governs.
Applying a historical perspective to modern political theory, Professor Donne presented some of the challenges history hurls at not only democracies, but all regimes. Mounting eco-catastrophes, biological degradations, things that humans as species cannot cope with effectively, more so regimes. Add to this the global challenges of economy and creating and sustaining peace, and democracy as an idealized model of collective utopia fails. Professor Donne says democracy is not an idea nor a political framework designed to address these challenges.
All forms of government fail when the challenges they have to face on behalf of their peoples overwhelm them. Where those challenges issue largely or distinctively from the outside, that's not necessarily a failure on democracy's part. It might well be, and usually would be, just as much a failure on the part of any other form of government that was allowed to make the effort instead of democracy. But where a democracy fails in face of challenges from within a society, the position is different, and often starkly so. Democracy, conceived as a system of political intentions, is a method and a set of structures by and through which a people governs itself. Insofar as any government satisfies that description, but fails in face of internal challenges, it must be democracy itself that has failed.
Furthermore, according to Professor Donne, for this idealized model of collective performance of citizens and rulers to establish itself as a democracy, the established rule of politicians must not fail to educate citizens, and the citizens must not fail to persistently choose or reject those who lead them, to give power and take it away. As for Armenia as an old society at a relatively new state, in John Donne's words,
Armenia has been a very, very old historical society with a very strong cultural history of its own, which it's very proud of. It's had in some ways a terrible political history in modern history, and it was effectively ruled from somewhere very different for a long time. And what was left behind by that system of rule when it stopped was not a setting which was very immediately suitable for democracy, and I think Armenia is still having to try to find its way through these political structures, and it's a learning process, and I'm not in a position to say who is doing most to help and who is doing most to hinder in that learning process, but it is a process in a way which every society has to try to learn. And you must make the political judgments about who are the heroes and the villains for yourself. It's not for foreigners to make silly guesses about who they are.
Socialism and capitalism are equally flawed as political goals, and with no post-capitalist system to which to look forward to, Professor Dunn suggests taking a look at the failures of democracy as seriously as any other regimes, and to think of it as a grand political project. You can watch the lecture Why Democracies Fail and How They Can Succeed in full on CivilNet.